an independent public health group put out a report. Essentially, the headline says they're calling for wealth tax and cross-party focus on well-being. And I think that's quite interesting that they bring that up. But it's called Determining the Future. Social, cultural, economic and commercial determinants of well-being in Aotearoa New Zealand, actions to improve our health and well-being. And they came up with some very interesting stuff, which I have to find his name. It's going to annoy me.
The dude.
Where are you? Where's your name? Where's your name? Oh, far out. It's not on there. Yep. Chair Kevin Haig. That's what I was looking for. Of the Public Health Advisory Committee. So Sam has a chat with him about the report that's just come out. And I will highlight, it's quite a long, it's like 4 minutes long, but I'll highlight one of the graphs here because I think this is quite sad in what we're seeing. And it's the Māori and Pacifica health outcomes are deteriorating and they look really awful. So, but one of the things that he does go through this interview is he talks about that it's not necessarily the health system itself, but the wider the wider circumstances of someone's health. So their housing and their basically their position in society. You know, what they're eating, how they're being housed, how they're being educated, all. The financial situation that their families and all of that makes a difference to their health outcomes. So I'll play a wee bit of this. I think this is probably the best. Yeah, we'll start from about here and then I'll play through to the graph because the graph's quite interesting.
Actually, they are, a few of them have improved, but for the most part, they've actually stayed the same. Or even deteriorated, and that's if anything maintained the gaps in health status between Māori, Pacifica New Zealanders, and other New Zealanders, and in some cases it's made them worse. So the Pacifica people are living more than 8 years less time than Pākehā New Zealanders, and that's a deterioration from 1998.
Yeah.
So
Jesus.
the 2001 to 2003, we're looking at 72-ish.
Yeah.
For Māori, we're looking just under 75 for Pacific, and we're looking at 80 on the dot for non-Māori and non-Pacific. And that line
It's a big
has
fucking gap.
pretty much stayed the same.
Yeah, let's
And,
get slightly
the-
coming down now.
The gap between non-Māori, non-Māori, non-Pacific and Pacific is widens just ever so slightly, and Māori have come up a wee bit, but the gap is still massive.
Yep.
So, yeah,
I love
crazy.
that for me.
Well, I mean, are you somewhere in the middle then?
Well, that's the problem is a lot of the time if you just have Māori, like, because actually this is, funnily enough, for a while I didn't ever tick Māori as my thing because a lot of the time that just puts you into Māori statistics. And my brain was like, how do you split me? But yeah, so, I mean, I am assuming I would just get counted with Māori. And I mean, I can kind of attest to that because my family, so we've got some, like, a good portion of my dad's side of the family, they die in their 50s. Like, my auntie was 57, one of my uncles was 59. You know, I think my grandfather was like 56 when he died. So, like, they do be like that.
Yeah. All right, I'll play through this for about a minute or so because he goes into a bit more detail on this.
Which are those areas that are proving stubborn or even going backwards?
Well, clearly housing is a very major determinant, and the housing affordability, overcrowdedness, that's actually increased since 1998. So that's got worse, and that has worsened New Zealanders' health outcomes. What we see in so many areas is that the government has taken, and not just this government, but most governments over the years, has taken a hands-off approach to the economy, and that means that the economy is left to its own devices. And when that happens, it will tend to make the already wealthy wealthier and make those who are less wealthy poorer. And we know that income disparity, that wealth disparity, will actually drive poorer health outcomes.
Just finally, Kevin, what is the one thing that you hope the...
Anything to say on that, Magenta?
I guess like the main thing that was making me think is that there's also other factors that go into, like, you know, the issues around our life expectancy, because stress is something that can negatively affect the body. So if you're stressed about, you know, I don't know, whether you will get discriminated against if you try to apply for a job, or, you know, just generally walking down the street, or any of those things, like that automatically puts a lot of minority people into a heightened state of stress. That's going to have wear and tear on our hearts, you know, especially because a lot of our populations as well, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of, you know, we've seen the abuse in state care. A lot of those were Māori people. Like, there is so much that can go into just stress and being discriminated against at a basic level, that trying to even go like in depth of the extra health things that need to be focused on, it's just, there's so much. And I don't think people quite understand how, like, when you're a minority, you're already put at a disadvantage, because you even just have to think about more things. Like, even they did a study with women and men taking a like a math test kind of thing to get a job, and they found that if the women who experienced some form of kind of prejudice, but just through, like, you know, shitty little comments, that actually made them perform worse on those tests, because it's taking up cognitive load in your brain, because your brain's having to try think through this other shit while it's supposed to do the job. And yeah, all of those kinds of things are just something that really impacts minority, whether it be Māori and Pacifica. And it's just, oh yeah, and then also you got intergenerational trauma, which is like a whole nother fucking thing. And you got also internalized racism. Like, there is so much that goes into these things. And it's only made worse when we think about the fact that Te Aka Whaiora, the Māori Health Authority, is now gone. Whatever chance we had of maybe, you know, closing that gap has been put back quite a lot.
Well, he has some. Sam asks what the advice to the government would be, and I think this goes for another 30 seconds or probably another minute or so. He has quite a lot to say, but I think he makes some really good points, obviously, because, you know, the report.
Just finally, Kevin, what is the one thing that you hope the government will do with this report?
Well, I'm hoping government will take a little bit of time with this report and not give just an instant response. There's a lot in this, and there are
long-term planning.
Many ideas that government could pick up. You know, our job, you know, we're an independent expert advisory group. Our job is to analyse the evidence and present that to the government with proposals for what we know will make a positive difference. You know, because of the unequal distribution of these building blocks of a good life, you know, the income, work, education, housing, it's no wonder that our Māori population, our Pacifica population, disabled people end up with health status and well-being status that's a lot poorer than everyone else. And so it's clearly a disaster for them. You know, we can do so much better for them, but it's also a disaster for all of us, because persistent inequalities and poor health status is a blight on our society, and it's also a drain on the public purse. because we're paying for it in those massive health dollars that need to go into the specialist care to deal with health problems that could have been avoided with better lives for everyone.
And this is something that I keep saying time and time again, and it's not for us, because I think we all know where my position sits. But if we were to look at people in the within the capitalist system, for the people that are so money hungry, business, first, all this other bullshit. If you purely look at it from your own personal, selfish point of view, money making point of view, healthy people make your business more money. Healthy people make for a more productive society. Healthy people will mean a higher GDP. If you purely look at it from that standpoint, if you want to look at it from the capitalist economic standpoint, healthier people cost less on this health system. It's basically, he's just said that there are blight on the health system, and there are things that we can do to prevent them getting to the point where they're using specialist care, which costs more, because obviously specialists and more time, all these sort of things. And yes, that does mean that we have to invest at the beginning, but in the long term vision of things, which some governments are really shit at looking at, in the long term, like if you invest now and you invest at this lower point, then you're going to overall not cost yourself as much over 10 years, 20 years, over 60 years, over a person's lifetime. So like if anyone is that kind of person and they're very selfish and they don't think about people, that's the point that I would keep putting to them.
Yeah. I mean,
sprinkle however much of the bullshit you need to do to get them to think about,
Well, yeah, I mean, like you say, it's so obvious. Healthy people into more jobs. One of the problems I see, though, is that what jobs has this government created for those people to go into? And also, unfortunately, I would have to agree with this. The drug industry. We know for a fact that lobbying and all of these things, it's kind of like, I've always said this about America, less so much about us, because I would argue we haven't been anywhere near as fucking like throwy pills at people. Still not great. But in America, it's always felt like they don't want them to be healthy, because if they're healthy, not only will they be able to work, they'll be able to actually start thinking about what they want to do with their life and realizing that they don't want to be stuck in a fucking factory doing demeaning work and not being appreciated or given enough money to survive on. Like, they want to keep people in these states of having to both rely on them for help, and then they get the satisfaction of being able to go and rub it in your face like, see, you're so pathetic, you needed me, and I'm so great because I helped you, even though they're what's keeping us in this fucking cycle. And obviously we're just becoming a smaller version of all of that. Like, it's pretty gross, to be honest. And it's partially why, not even partially why, it's a good portion of why they're trying to go for titidity, because they know titidity is one of the strongest things we have to protect us against corporate exploitation. And until they can get rid of the fucking indigenous law in this country, they're just going to keep attacking us. Like, it's frustrating because they have the money. They could do it, but like we've always said, it's what they're choosing to put the money into. And all they're choosing to do is trying to privatize and make more business and create this unsustainable expectation of, even though there's some stuff that we'll look at later, but like this obsession with like government shouldn't spend more. Yes, it fucking should. Because when I was like 2000s, we had 3.9 million people at the beginning of this millennium. We're now at 5.2 million people. We should be spending more money because there's more fucking people. It's like, it makes me feel crazy sometimes. Because I'm not even that good at math. It's just, frustrating.
Well, the Prime Minister had something to say about this report, because the big T word came. Yes, he did. He managed to sneak a blame Labour in there. Don't know how he does it. every time it's always Labour's fault. They haven't even
Wasn't
done
he
anything. This is nothing.
nice and rested after his holiday or some shit?
He went on holiday? Fucking.
Yeah, he went on fucking holiday for some... Yeah, I can't remember when that happened. I'm sure someone will bloody mention it in the chat.
Good for him. So, as we just heard there, the report was more so to do with the underlying reasons that people have poor health outcomes and sort of the well-being aspect as well. And one of the things I mentioned was increasing tax, a wealth tax, in order to pay for this. And he did also in there. He was very Chris, wasn't it? He was very good at trying to make it apolitical and really saying like this has nothing to do with politics. This is really just looking at the broader. We are just looking at the facts, the data, and this is what it says. Wealth inequality here has something to do with this as well. So I really appreciate that. There was no blame Labour in that. All right, so I'll just read this to you. Cost of living pressures also make an appearance within the report, highlighting that financial stress was the greatest immediate concern for young people the authors spoke to. Rising rates of complex long-term conditions like diabetes is coupled with lower physical activity and worsening mental health, particularly among young people, while the aging population is expected to add further pressure. Other topics covered include child poverty, education, unemployment, income inequality, racism, ableism, climate change, and housing quality. So it's very extensive.
Just a few things.
Just everything.
Just a little bit.
Just every factor of life. Despite absolute gains across many determinants such as income and education and reductions in some absolute inequalities, there have been limited or no change in the relative differences, privilege or disadvantage between ethnic and socioeconomic groups for many socioeconomic indicators. It says large reductions in smoking rates have contributed significantly to reduction in cardiovascular disease, stroke, chronic lung disease, lung cancer and other conditions over the last 30 years. Can we just have a reminder about what they did this year to the smoke-free 2025?
I love that for us.
But inequities remain in other health indicators like infant and child mortality in Pacific populations, and no real change in inequalities for Māori and Indian people compared with all other ethnic groups. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon said he had not read the report, but dismissed the idea of a wealth tax, saying it was not on the cards. I love that they quoted this.
I didn't read the book. They quoted this
in the quote.
But here's my fucking book review. What the fuck?
They didn't need to put this in. They could have redacted it, but they kept it in, which makes me laugh. I'd just say, a wealth tax is completely the wrong answer for New Zealand. They could have just got rid of the I'd just say, but they kept it in. I like that. I'd just say a wealth tax is completely the wrong answer for New Zealand, he said. You've heard Chris Hipkins say that he's not sure he's going to rule out capital gains taxes on the family home. And the reality is New Zealand at this part, what we need to do is focus on growing the economy so that we can improve our productivity and lift living standards for all. And that's really the focus of this government. And then I love that this was put in the end. One of the arguments in favour of capital gains tax is that it would decrease the incentive to invest into housing, making investments into productive businesses comparatively more attractive. Didn't need to put that in there, but I appreciate that that's in there because I think that's important to reiterate of what a capital gains tax would give us. And if we are talking about economic growth, then one of the arguments keeps coming up time and time again is if you take the incentive to invest in housing out and make the investment into productive businesses more attractive, then it will produce more businesses who can then grow our economy because they make jobs and they make products for export that brings in import-export taxes, all of that stuff. It stimulates the economy. And if you want to grow and you want more businesses, that's one way of doing it. Otherwise, you just have people hoarding 400 fucking houses.
And that's just my one. It could have gone up since then because I think that number was like maybe 5 years ago. So, fuck knows. Also, there was a comment earlier from our favourite Dot. I didn't know this. New Zealand has one of the highest asthma rates in the world, and damp substandard housing gives rise to more respiratory disorders. Which, I think my mum and my brother both have asthma, and I know so many people who have asthma. And also, I think Huey Burp here kind of thinks we're the most productive we have ever been. We do not have a productivity issue. We have a money distribution problem. And I think that really sums up well of just, they just do this typical, like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the memes where, like, it's different paper clippings throughout the centuries of people being like, oh, you know, these young people, they just don't want to work anymore. And this is like published in like the early 1900s, and then they redo it. It's just one of those things where they're trying to rest on this weird laurels of like, oh, we can't just go giving money away, throwing it away. We've got to be smart, even though they are throwing it away. They're not being smart. So yeah, it's frustrating.
One of the things that I found really interesting is that over in the Nordic countries, you know, the height of what could possibly Scandinavia, all of them, is the housing standards, the minimum housing standards over there, even for our brand new builds, their housing standards are like the top one or two like ratings, and that's like a base build for them, and it probably is because a lot of them are in like very they're obviously close to the Arctic, so they get a lot colder than we do here. That said, we do have quite a what would you say? Our climate here is quite extreme, I think. So if you make it a national standard,
subtropical to subantarctic.
Exactly. So we have quite an extreme climate. So if you want to nationalize this, you know, standard national, then it needs to be good for both hot, humid conditions as well as cold, frigid, dry conditions. But the standard over there is something like I think when you rate housing for like heat retention, insulation, sound protection, all of that sort of thing. The standard over there is something like it's 7 or 8 or 9 plus. Like it's crazy high. But to get a 10 star or like top standard home, or even not even that, like a 9 or an 8 here is so fucking expensive. Like it's just like it's astronomical because we just don't use those building materials and we don't take the time to actually standardize that way of building. I think there's something like triple glaze over there, which is crazy. But the fact that we didn't have double glazed in my lifetime, I remember when double glaze was made the standard. They were like years ahead of us, and they were like, yeah, that's been standard for yonks. Why are you building single glazed homes? It's crazy. So I think if we could, I think that would make such a difference if we just improved even just that. Like we actually took the time to make better houses that actually would not just meet like the minimum standards now, but exceed the minimum standards now, so that when new standards come in the next 20, 30
kind of
years,
future-proof it. Yeah.
They're future-proofed and they're still really good. Like the fact that a lot of our homes do not have insulation. The standard is top and bottom insulation. There is no standard for outer insulation. Why? Because it would cost landlords way too much to remove walls and put fucking insulation and can't do that. We'll just do roof and base because that's the best we can do.
Oh, if
that's
you've got
the easiest.
We didn't get any because our house is fucking weird and old and you can't put shit in the... All they did was
unless there's
some
an
of the
exception.
stuff for upstairs. Yeah, our house is fucked with that stuff. But I mean... Though there is one point, though, that I've seen a few people in the chat talking about it. We'd have to pay higher tax rates. Just as a baseline standard, that's not like... And I believe they have a capital... some kind of CGT. Because,
almost all countries have a CGT.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's bullshit. Because also, like, I saw this comment here. We are not saying CGT on your home. Just to make this very clear to Michelle, that is not what we're saying. It's always on investment properties. Like, people who just own their own home, no, they shouldn't have to pay a capital gains tax. That would be fucking stupid. But the people
Especially
like
when a lot of-
the people who own 400 homes, they should.
Especially when you've got a lot of people who generationally that has been their investment retirement, basically. They're basically paying
Absolutely.
for a house in order to, when they
Yeah.
need to sell it and then pay for their retirement. So I don't think that's fair to put that on a... but I would even argue someone's second, like the mum and pop landlords, right? I'm 50-50 on them. Like, I think they should pay, if they do pay capital gains tax, it should be far lower. But I think there should be something that's like progressive, you know? Okay, on your third home, then, you know, you pay this much. On your fourth home, you pay this much. On your fifth, your sixth, I don't know. After your second property or your first investment, so you've got your house and then you've got your mum and pop landlord fucking retirement saving, whatever. Because there is an argument for landlords and for renters, absolutely. But 400 fucking houses, that's disgusting.
Exactly.
That
So
is,
like
that is disgust. That is money. That is just yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing is, it's like, and I mean, I'm sure it's just as bad in Auckland because they've got a lot of houses and apartments up there too. So like,
I think Pat was
Yeah.
saying that in Dunedin there's something like 35,000 homes, I think.
oh yeah,
So it doesn't take long for housing to rack up. And it's
God,
one of those things that once you've got 1-2 investment properties, it's so easy to just bank on the next one and bank on the next one and bank on the next one.
exactly.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Though I just realized I saw a super chat here earlier that's reminding me to show you something. Do you want to see something from the CTU?
Oh yeah. Please. I missed out.
Let's
What
go.
did I miss out on?
Oh, just you wait. Just you wait, buddy. So this came out today. The NZCTU call on Prime Minister to sack Brooke Van Velden. We are calling on the PM to show leadership by removing Brooke Van Velden as Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety following her recent comments that politicise the Employment Relations Authority and breach the Cabinet Manual. So, she in trouble. They say here, it is of the utmost importance that ministers respect the independence of judicial bodies and not politicise them by saying they expect members they've appointed to deliver outcomes that suit their political agenda. These comments represent the kind of political interference in judicial processes that undermine the rule of law and have no place in a democracy. It is deeply concerning that the Minister has told media that she stands by her comments after the PSA called for a retraction. It is now clear that the Prime Minister must step in and take action to uphold ministerial standards in his cabinet. Since she was appointed, Van Velden has implemented constant policy attacks on workers' rights and unions. There is no ability for workers and the public to have confidence in her as the Minister. It's time for her to go. They really didn't mince their words.
No.
And when I saw that today, I was like, wow, this is going to be fun to see if he actually even responds to or acknowledges.
Probably not.
Yeah. But that was a little fun read from 8 hours ago.
Good on them. I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't want to be a doomer, but you know, they've broken the cabinet manual time and time again. They've done stupid bullshit in the house, outside of the house. They've said things they shouldn't have said. They've done things they shouldn't have done, and no repercussions have happened time and time again. But as part of a democracy, we are allowed to call things out when they happen.
Sure.
We are allowed to ask for repercussions. And, you know, at least we tried.
Absolutely.
We followed the rules. At least we tried, and then it's.
Well, I think the way that I
push
look at it is kind of like when I was on, say, like student council, and I used to do a lot of student advocacy in the tertiary space. Like, I used to always encourage people to make complaints, because even if that one complaint doesn't actually get like acknowledged or told about, or even done with anything with. It's when you get a number of complaints, you know, like having these reputable places coming out and making statements like this. This is a really good way for like next year when the election's kicking off, you know, Labour and them can be like, look at how many people, not only did they get asked to say remove Brooke Van Velden, how many fucking lawsuits is this fucking government in for all the contracts that they've broken? It makes them look bad, and it adds that kind of fuel to that fire to go, guys, we can't make it any clearer how much they suck. Even if you don't love Labour or the Greens, please don't do this.
I think we've seen this week, even on the teachers' strike thing, actually, the pointing to the things that we say, sort of the $2.9 billion for landlords, the $671 million ferries that don't exist. Those numbers are resonating with people. The tobacco lobby tax, all of that stuff. Like the teachers on that teacher strike were, I don't know which one it was, either Stuff or TVNZ's article. One of the teachers basically recited those numbers. And they said, you can afford to pay us because you've just spent this, this, and this. And they recited the numbers, and that was fantastic. And then we saw Chris Hipkins do the same thing when he was, when I think Nicola attacked him for Labour being fiscally innumerate. And then he came back with, okay, Nicola, $2.9 billion for landlords, the tax subsidies, all this sort of stuff. So I think those things are finally... They are the left's, what do you call them? Slogans of sorts. Yeah, and they are resonating with people. So that's good.
Oh, absolutely.
The more that we have those repeated, the better.
Oh,
that
exactly.
laundry list is very, 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 very long.
And to be honest, I feel like, and maybe this is just me tooting our favourite economist's horn, I feel like Craig Rennie, the Locked Up podcast, obviously him being here on BHN, I feel like that is genuinely going, because like a lot of the numbers or the things people are repeating, I'm like, do you watch BHN or Locked Out with Craig Rennie? This is feeling real familiar. And I just love that, because we're actually seeing that, like, I feel like a lot of us feel powerless, like we can't do anything right now. But we're kind of doing stuff, guys. And that includes through memes and through, you know, all of the dumb things we do as well. Like, it's just awesome to see.